This is a train in Ohio. No, it's not Ukraine or Kazakhstan or Russia. Just look at how wobbly it is, how unsafe it looks. Would you want a train carrying hazardous materials moving through your community like this? Do you think from looking at this clip that the railroad industry in America could probably use more oversight? Let's dive in. On Friday, February 3rd, in East Palestine, Ohio, a 150-car train owned and operated by Norfolk Southern derailed, causing 52 cars to fall off the track. 5 of the cars were carrying vinyl chloride, which is an extremely combustible substance that is used in plastic production. The derailment started a fire that raged through the weekend. Officials said they observed a drastic temperature change in one of the rail cars and feared a potential explosion could send shrapnel flying up to a mile in the air. To avoid the explosion, crews released the contents of 5 tankers full of vinyl chloride, and then crews ignited a controlled burn to get rid of the substances. Next came a loud boom, and the burn sent off a massive plume of phosgene gas and hydrogen chloride in a massive black cloud that was visible from meteorologists' radars. Then, a few days later, it was announced that the evacuated residents could return to their homes only days after the controlled release. Local officials stated over and over again that the drinking water is safe and it was safe to return. But many residents reported issues and were nervous about coming back to their homes.
We're hearing a lot of decreased appetite, not wanting to drink. If they do drink, they're throwing up.
If it can do this to chickens in one night, imagine what it's going to do to us in 20 years.
My grandson, who's 11, has multiple rashes.
Why are people still getting sore throats and, their eyes burning?
I inhaled that air and I thought I was going to freaking die.
Our town needs help.
Here we have a hazardous materials specialist, Sil Caggiano, talking about what these hazardous materials could do to the community.
5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
These people are dealing with scary stuff. This isn't like a family forced to wait an extra day for a plane ride to go home after going on a vacation to a tropical paradise for a week and then deciding to go to the press to talk about how the big bad discount airline proved to be unreliable and really inconvenienced them. The horror. Thank you, CP24, for doing the Lord's work. I digress. Okay, back to Ohio. There has been multiple videos of people showing chemical colorations in the local creeks. It's said that 3,500 fish have died, and there's been multiple reports of foxes and chickens dying following the fire. Putting local residents and observers even more on edge is a lack of mainstream media covering the story. Making it even worse, a reporter with News Nation was arrested during a press conference for being too loud. His charges were later dismissed. Okay, you might be wondering, how common are train derailments? Well, they're actually pretty common in the US, with an average of over 3 per day for the last decade. But there's a few noteworthy ones that have occurred in North America over this time period. In 2012, a Conrail freight train derailed in Paulsboro, New Jersey, with 55 of its 82 cars carrying hazardous materials, including vinyl chloride. One of the cars ruptured and released 20,000 gallons of toxic gas into the air, which caused medical emergencies and evacuations. Over a dozen first responders were exposed to the chemical, and hundreds of residents sued Conrail. In 2013 in Quebec, an unintended freight train carrying crude oil derailed, causing a massive explosion and fire that killed 47 people and destroyed buildings. The explosion released crude oil, contaminating the environment, taking years to clean up. In 2017, a CSX freight train carrying hazardous materials derailed in Heinemann, Pennsylvania, causing a fire and an explosion, evacuating residents within a 1.5-mile radius of the crash site. There were no reported injuries, but it created significant damage to the area. Call it recency bias, but it feels like derailments have gotten more common. There's been at least 3 announced that have been all over the headlines since the East Palestine derailment. So what is causing the derailments?
It's only a matter of time before fatigued workers, unrealistic inspection policies, and unqualified inspections result in a major incident in someone's neighborhood.
Many people are blaming precision scheduled railroading, which is a set of principles and operating practices that have been adopted by some North American railroads in recent years in an effort to improve efficiency, reliability, and profitability. It effectively means getting more efficient, which is shorter staff, longer hours, longer trains, less safety, and less maintenance. Of course, people thought this was a bad idea. Since 2015, when precision scheduled railroading started to become a thing, the railroad industry has cut roughly 30% or 45,000 of their total workers. As for Norfolk Southern, they have shed roughly 40% of their nearly 30,000 person workforce. Norfolk Southern has managed to reduce their workforce by cutting inspection times from 3 minutes per car all the way down to 1.4 minutes per car, or 84 seconds, reducing the inspection time per car by over 50%. Here's a clip of Peter DeFazio in 2019, who is chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where Peter voices his concern.
There a point at which you're going to be concerned about the safety by the reduction of the number of employees and about the inconvenience for the rest of the United States of America because these companies are driving these trains as long as they can with as few people as they can? I mean, you don't have any concerns about this. You think this is all just hunky-dory?
DeFazio wasn't alone in his fight for safer measures. In 2015, Barack Obama changed laws to require railroad companies to install electronically controlled pneumatic brakes by 2021. The idea was that this could prevent disasters like the one we experienced in Quebec. Then in 2017, Trump rolled back the requirements because the Department of Transportation under his administration said it would be too expensive. And I quote, "The cost of this mandate would exceed threefold the benefits it would produce." Now, of course, news like this has Democrats pointing their finger at the crazy orange man, but even if the safety rule had been in effect, it wouldn't have applied to Norfolk Southern in this case, because according to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, this train would not have been categorized as a high hazard cargo train. Perhaps Obama's regulations, coupled with some common sense regulations to classify a train carrying chemicals that boil at 8 degrees Celsius as high hazards, would have made sense, but what do I know? Now, the cutbacks for the railroad industry don't end there. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, we have seen an increase of 25% in train lengths between 2008 to 2017, which are now on average between 1.2 to 1.4 miles long. Now, according to the USA Today, the 150 car train in Ohio was 1.9 miles long. The major railway labor union, the brother of locomotive engineers and trainmen, has noted that very long trains can lead to interruptions in radio communications with crew members, and long trains also can lead to slower break times. As for Norfolk Southern, if you think costs are really an issue, what if I told you that the company's in the process of a $10 billion share buyback, in addition to shareholders receiving a nice, tasty cash dividend every quarter? Now, you're probably wondering, why hasn't this cash-rich company shown up to any of these community town halls for the town they just nuked?
Because they're scared for their safety.
Well, the mayor thinks they are scared for their safety. This town, with regular hardworking Americans, doesn't know if they can ever go home and drink the water again, breathe the air again, or let their kids run outside and play again. And of course, you can point to the EPA and the various other disasters where everything ended up being fine. That doesn't mean that these people can live peace of mind knowing that where they lived was safe. They didn't ask for any of this. And as for Norfolk Southern, a company who is in the process of a $10 billion buyback after firing 40% of their workforce, well, they're offering them $200 a person. Of course, there are already 4 lawyers chasing class action lawsuits here, but these will take years to settle. And sadly, if the new railway standards are any indication, this won't be the last railway incident we hear about. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a chemist or I'm an expert on any of this stuff. I just spent 3 days reading in pretty much every article I could get my hands on and share this content with you. But what I will say is that it seems to me like equipment this heavy that is moving such dangerous chemicals shouldn't have its operators reduce 40% of their staff over such a short period of time and expect no hiccups. People like simple answers from strong personalities that say things like, regulation is bad. And that's not always true. Sometimes we need regulation. And if you think that trains that look like the one that we introduced this video with, being managed by companies that, quite frankly, are mostly concerned about their bottom line, well, get used to more of this crap happening in communities like yours. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me. If you could do me a big favor, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It would be greatly appreciated. I love you all.